This is level 45. Maybe it doesn't look hard, but that's a trap. 15 questions like this, not hard, but they quietly wreck people's scores. Welcome to the SAT Math Ladder, Run 2, Most Missed Questions. Every question today is one that a ton of students get wrong. Your job? Pause, solve, and try to spot the trap. My job is to show you why people miss it in the first place. These aren't genius questions. They're, I knew that, why did I miss it questions. Fix these and you're going to stop bleeding points. Level 16. Pause now, do the problem, then unpause, and I'll show you the solution. Okay, the trap on this one is that you just can't believe it's that easy. What's the maximum data value? This is the column data value. This is the number 14. That's the answer. One leg of a right triangle. That means I'm going to draw a right triangle. And I know that one leg is 43.2. Put that in. I know the hypotenuse is 196.8. You put that in, and we're looking for the missing leg. So that's the x right here. What is the length of the other leg? This is just a straight up Pythagorean theorem. So I think the reason people mess this one up is they just don't draw the picture, and they get the numbers put in the wrong spots. Pretty typical geometry error. One of the things I'm going to do with this is, because it says calculator allowed, I'm not going to waste time calculating the decimals for these things. I'm going to write this as one big square root, and then I'm going to put this entire thing into the calculator. That's going to save some time. So once I did that, the correct answer was 192. The word problems are always a little tricky. I know I have a length of 106 inches cut into two parts. One part has a length of X and the other part is a length of Y. Be super careful here. I haven't seen anything yet that's telling me they're cutting it into two equal parts, and you don't want to do that visually because that might mess you up. The value of X is 6 more than 4 times the value of Y. Okay, so it's not in equal parts. So put your mark someplace else. So I have X and I have Y. The value of X is 6 more than 4 times the value of Y. If you're a visual learner, make the longest piece the X piece because it's bigger. So now we are going to rewrite that X. The X is 6 more than 4 times Y. So instead of calling this X, we're going to call it 4Y plus 6. Well, now you have a segment addition problem. I'm going to add these two together, 4Y plus 6 plus Y, and set it equal to the 106, which is the total. Now subtract 6 from both sides, divide by 5. I'm not showing all the little steps. So I have Y equal to 20. I lucked out they didn't put 20 as an answer because it's wrong, because I want to know what X is. So I have to put that in to my little formula there. So X turns out to be 4 times 20 plus 6, and that's going to be 86. This one's a little tricky. What they're saying here is that the answer for this function minus 3. So this is what we're talking about. You take a number, you plug it in here, and then you subtract 3 from the answer. So I'm looking at this -6, but then I look at all the tables. That's a tip. Look at all the tables. They all have the same X values. So you really just need to figure out what's going on with even one of them. So let's put in the -6 right here. That's going to zero it out. Awesome. So no matter what I do, no matter what these are, you're going to end up multiplying by 0 and then subtracting 3. So the answer has to be -3. So I think the answer is either B or C. But what about this -5? What's happening with that? When you put that in here, that zeroes it out. So you're also going to get 0 minus 3 equals -3. So -5 is supposed to be -3. And the same thing's going to happen with the 4, although you probably figured it out already. There's your 0. So no matter what you do with these 3 X values, your answer is always -3. So the correct answer is B. Function is defined by g of x equals 6x. For what value of x is g of x equal to 54? Well, this is where they're telling you what the answer is. They're just asking this question in a really complicated way. That's what makes this tricky and probably why people mess this up. So if g of x is 6x, just replace g of x with 6x. Now you have 6x equals 54, and we are done. Answer's 9. Green zone cleared. Yellow zone is next. They're going to get a little bit trickier. Are you ready? All right, we've got an event planner is planning a party. One-time fee of $35 means you're not multiplying that by anything. That's an incredible deal. And then take 10.25 times the number of people, and you don't want to go over 300. Let the number of attendees be our X. That's the thing we're looking for. So I take that X times 1025 that I'll have to pay for each one, plus the 35 I have to pay up front. And I set it equal to 300, although technically I think this is an inequality, but you're going to get the number anyway, so I'm going with it. I get X equals 25.853. So that's the most number of people I can invite, and I don't think 0.853 is going to work as a whole person. So my answer is going to be 25 attendees. We voted for a new school mascot, and they asked 80 kids to vote. If one of these students is selected at random, what is the probability of selecting a student whose vote was for a lion? Well, these are the people who voted for the lion. 20 of them out of 80. So it's 20 out of 80, which reduces to 1/4. And I can't tell you why people got this one wrong other than maybe just panic, because it looked like a lot of data. Triangles ABC and DEF are congruent, and B and E are right angles, so I have two congruent right triangles. All right, B and E are the right angles, so it doesn't matter where you put the other letters, but they have to correspond. A corresponds to D, C corresponds to F. That's really important. Use the letters as they're written to figure out what goes with what. You can see that B is going with E. So we now have A and D, and C and F. The measure of angle A is 18 degrees. What I'm looking for is this angle, because I want to know what the measure of F is, and F is going to match C. Well, if this is 18, and I have to find this one, we're going to go 90 minus 18. That's going to be 72 degrees, so this one is 72 degrees, and the answer is B. They just want to know the slope of this line. And of course, it's a line of best fit, and it's not going through any 2 points I can use. So I'm going to go through and look for points. I see a couple. So draw those in. And if you're doing slope, you're doing rise over run. It's like how many up and how many over. So it's rise over run, be 3/5. Take 3 and divide it by 5, and we come up with 0.6. Which of these has exactly one solution? You don't want to work them all out. That'll take way too much time. So let's just look at what we know about square roots. This first one, if I take the square root of both sides to start, since this isn't squared, you get plus or minus 0. I'm pretty sure that's our answer, but let's just double check, because there is no such thing as plus or minus 0. It's just 0. That's one answer. If you do the square root of this, you end up taking the square root of a negative number. That's no good. Nope. And here, whatever you get, when you take the square root of both sides, it would be plus or minus whatever the square root of 45 is. And the same thing is true for 135. So we have one answer, and we didn't have to work these all out. It's A. Yellow zone is cleared. Now it's time for boss battle. You ready for these? There's just 5. Here we go. Rent a bus is $950 for the first 3 hours, and an additional $50 per hour for each hour after the first 3 hours. So if the total cost to rent the bus for T hours, what is the total cost if T is greater than 3? So if you go 4 hours, it's going to be $950 plus 50. If you go for 5 hours, it's going to be $950 plus 100. So there's a typo in this practice problem, but when I look at the answers, I can see what's going on here. So we know $950 is for the first 3 hours. So let's pretend our time is 7 hours, just to help me figure out which one of these makes sense. I pick a number that's bigger than 3. So I know then I'd be paying $950 for the first 3 hours. So it wouldn't be A or B because they're multiplying. It needs to be a standalone price. Plus, and then I'd be paying $50 for 4 more hours. So how do I get the 4? It would be 7 minus 3. So it would have to be my time minus 3. That makes the answer C. The trap here was to be all getting wound up in this, and the way to get out of it is to just pick a number and put it in there and see what you did so you can pick the right formula for it. So we have a circle that has a radius of 3n and another circle that has, it's obviously bigger, has a radius of 129n, where n is a positive constant. The area of circle B is how many times the area of circle A. The trap here is going to be to divide 129 by 3. That's not what's going on. You got to look at the area formula. Area is pi r squared. So if I look at the first circle that has a radius of 3n, its area works out to be 9 pi n squared. And if you look at the bigger one that has a radius of 129n, its area is 16,641 pi n squared. The pi n squareds don't make the difference between these. It's the coefficients. So divide those numbers out, and you get the correct answer, which is 1849. Whether it's circles or squares or any time, when they're talking about areas and volumes, you cannot use the numbers as given. You've got to plug that stuff into the formulas so you can see what the real coefficients are going to be. There's your trap. This is equal to 4, and this is equal to 4. So if they're both equal to 4, they're both equal to each other. And that's how you set it up. From here, I'm going to cross multiply. So I have x times ny equals 24x times y. I'm just going to rearrange here. Look at this. If I put the n in the front, nxy, 24xy. Well, the xy's are going to cancel. So n equals 24. A is a positive constant, and this thing right up here gives the predicted number of bacteria in a growth medium x hours. I was curious what the x was going to be. X hours after the number of bacteria was initially measured. That's important. According to the equation, what was the predicted number of bacteria initially measured? So before they started, how much did they have? What would x be at that point? Well, x is 0. That's the trick. Once you figure that part out, pop a 0 in there. Anything to the 0 power equals 1, and our answer is 3,600. The population increases by 7%. They're just asking you, what did you multiply your population by to figure out what your new population is? Increase by 7%. This is what a lot of people are going to do. They're going to write that decimal out, and they're going to think that this is the answer. They choose that, but that is incorrect. That is not the right answer. Because if you multiply something times 0.07, you actually get a smaller answer. What you're getting is the amount of new people. If you want to know how many people you have now, you have to make sure you add on the 100% you started with. So we're going to add these two together, and you're going to get 1.07. Most missed run complete. How many of these traps did you dodge? Drop your score in the comments, how many out of 15, and which question almost got you. So while you're here, rerun your weakest level in this playlist and beat it a second time. That's how you lock it in. Run 3 of the SAT Math Ladder is coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next level and keep climbing. Drink the coffee, do the math. And don't let easy looking questions steal your score.